Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head a little bit north for this review once again to Dalarna county, a very pretty place, somewhere that I do still need to visit, and also home to a good number of very nice little microbreweries these days. For this review then we are going to return to one of the ones that has featured on the channel a number of times before. If memory serves me correctly, this is review number 5 that I'm doing from them, and I have been impressed with the beers that I've had from them already, but this is one of my favourite styles of German traditional beer, and I've never tried this style from them before. So fingers crossed that makes for a very interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So for this one then we are going to go to the little town of Sälen in the kind of southwest of the county, known for its ski slopes actually, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Sälens Fjällbryggeri, so the Sälen Mountain Brewery if you want to translate the name literally into English. So this particular beer is called the Fjällbock. It comes in at 7% ABV. It's a German style Doppelbock, and this was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment for October of 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. 7%er. And so hopefully it should be a nice interpretation of the style. The other beers that I've had from these guys before, the very first one that I had was a white IPA back in like 2016 or so. Then I didn't review anything from these guys for quite some time, but more recently I did the red IPA, then I did the Fjällpilsen, it was called, which was a Czech style Pilsner beer. Last month we had a double IPA from the limited series. I think it was either limited 08 or limited 09, I think 09, and that was really nice as well. And now we are going to have a little look at this one. So this is my first kind of German style beer that I'm having from them, but like I say, it's one of my favourite traditional styles of German beer, and hopefully it turns out to be as good quality as the last beers that I've had from them. So yeah, fingers crossed this is a good beer, and like I said, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Sälens Fjällbryggeri before, and you will no doubt see more from these guys in the fairly near future, because this is a brewery that have impressed me with the quality of their beer so far, and I will keep an eye out for them in the Lokal Småskaligt. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that we show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Sälens Fjällbryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you already, this brewery is based in the small town of Sälen in Dalarna county. You'll find it kind of to the southwest part of the county, although the whole thing kind of goes diagonally, so you'll find it kind of about here. It's almost halfway between Trondheim in Norway to the north-west, and then Stockholm in Sweden to the southeast. It's almost right in the middle of these two cities actually. But yeah, like I say, very well known for its ski slopes, so it's kind of fitting that they do have their own brewery. But this brewery was founded back in 2012 by Pelle Hoffman and Magnus Enström, who together own the Gustav Grill and Bar restaurant in Lindvallen in the town. So they also own the Hemfjällstugan and Fjällbagaren restaurants as well in the city, which all have different types of food from what I gather. But Pelle had been homebrewing for a good number of years and actually had won a number of competitions, but he then decided that he wanted to sell his beers in the restaurant, and this went down very well with his customers. And initially the beers were only being produced in very small 50-litre batches, and so in this time they were very prolific in producing different beers for the restaurants. But the positive reaction they had from these very small batches was what prompted them to put their beers into Systembolaget and scale up and start a kind of production brewery as well. So they started off with a capacity of around about 200 litres per brew, but they've now moved to a new premises in Lindvallen where they have a production brewery. There's a 2,000 litre brew kit there that they imported from the Czech Republic, and this gives them an annual output of around 250,000 litres of beer per year. They are planning to gradually expand this further with more fermentation tanks and things, and they have been just kind of doing that gradually over the last couple of years. Their beers are available nationwide these days, and as you've kind of seen from the ones that I've reviewed from them so far, they do try a variety of different styles. They've got their limited series, which is where they produce the more kind of punchy big beers, and they have got their kind of regular beers that they do as well, which are various different traditional styles from, you know, Czech Republic, Belgium, Germany, and all of these kind of things. But as of October 2019, when I'm producing this review for you, these guys have produced over 100 different types of beer. I think the exact number was about 108 or something like that when I checked Untappd earlier on. But yeah, as I said, I've been impressed with the beers that I've had from these guys before. The quality really shines through when you drink them, and that's having had a white IPA, a red IPA, a Czech Pilsen, a double IPA, which was more of a West Coasty type IPA, and then hopefully this one comes across in the same vein as those last ones. So yeah, I think the next stage for these guys is to try something from the dark end of the spectrum, so I'll need to have a look and see what they actually have available in that sense. So it'll probably have to be like a Schwarzbier, a porter, or a stout or something like that. But as I said, very impressed with the quality of the beers that I've had from these guys so far. They always come across as really quite clean and nice, and I guess that that's due to the water quality that they have in that area up in Dalarna. So yeah, as I say, really nice little brewery this one, and I highly recommend that you check these guys out if you get the chance. As I've told you in reviews before, one of the great things about the Swedish beer scene is that the home brewing culture has been so strong for a number of years because of how strict the alcohol laws are. A number of these guys go commercial, and you get great quality beers as a result of that. So it's always worth trying beers from the very small guys in the different random places in Sweden. And you know, Sälens Fjällbryggeri are one of the examples that I would always cite that kind of really do that. But Dalarna County has a very good craft beer scene these days. Probably the most well-known brewery from Dalarna would be Doppelbock Brewery, who have done some very interesting beers over the years. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you about Sälens Fjällbryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'm really curious to see what this has in store for us. So as I've said to you before in other Sälens Fjällbryggeri reviews, I always think the artwork on these ones, it really reminds me of like a kind of hunting lodge almost, with the moose antlers and stuff like that. But I really do like the artwork that they have here. It's kind of very fitting for a brewery that's pretty much out in the wilderness there in the southwest of Dalarna County. But yeah, really nice artwork on this, and it is pretty much the same as you'll find from the other beers. It's usually just a kind of different colour background you get from these different ones. But yeah, this is the 2020 edition of the Fjällbock, which is intended to be one of their winter season beers. There you can see the Sälens Fjällbryggeri bottle cap on this one. I've got a number of those already, but it tells you on the back here, Starkul, strong beer, 7% ABV. So it says Sälens Fjällbryggeri is a small brewery that lies in Lindvallen in Sälen. We were founded in 2012, and we have our roots in home brewing tradition. So Fjällbock 2020 is a lager beer that's malted with a focus on tones of like butterscotch, I think, wort, pomerantz, I'm not sure what that is, and chocolate. But this fits well with autumn and winter's rustic food, or just on its own, basically. I think that's what it's saying. But yeah, it's a really nice beer, this one. I'm curious to see, it looks a little bit bright actually compared to some other Doppelbocks that I've had before, just going from the bottle, but we'll get it out and have a little look at that in a minute. But like I've told you before, the Doppelbock is one of my favourite styles of German traditional beer, so yeah, I always enjoy reviewing these ones, and I do keep an eye out for examples of this style being released through the Lokala Småskaligt in Systembolaget, because you can, as I say, you can always find some real gems from these very small breweries. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I'm curious to see what this one has in store for us. So nice little bit of smoke on the opening there. We'll get it out and into the glass. Wee bit of CO2. Oh, right, okay. Now I'm curious about this one. So, as it was saying on the label there, the Doppelbock is basically a lager beer, where you can see about a quarter finger of a frothy, kind of cream, fawny coloured head there. That's just going to fade away and be a kind of thin sort of ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, the thing is with the Doppelbocks, they are actually a lager beer, so it's a cold fermentation beer. The story behind the Bock actually is that the Bock comes from the village of Einbeck in Bavaria, and so these beers were taken down to Munich. And the difference in accents that these that they had, the Munich people kind of picked up on the local dialect from Einbeck, and they started calling these beers Bock, because the Einbeckers basically called these beers Bocks, and Bock means like a billy goat. So this is why quite often on these different Bock beers you'll see that there's like a billy goat on the label. Yeah, the Doppelbock is basically one that was developed a little bit later to be a wee bit more kind of strong and things like that. But essentially, I always kind of view the Doppelbock as a slightly stronger version of the Dunkel almost. It's quite similar in its flavour profile. But yeah, when it comes to the lager beers, these are all bottom fermenting beers if I remember rightly, but basically it's cold fermentation. So in Germany you have the Helles lager, which is the blonde one, the Dunkel, which is the more kind of mahogany coloured, and you also have the Schwarzbier, which is the black one. You've got the Doppelbock, which is a slightly stronger one, and you also have the regular Bock beers as well. In the Czech Republic, of course, you've got the Svetli, which is equivalent to the Helles, the Letzak, which is a little bit more like a regular Bock or an amber lager, a Vienna type lager. Then you've got the Czerny, which is equivalent to the Dunkel. And you've got the Tamavi, which is the equivalent of the Schwarzbier. I don't think they have something equivalent to the Doppelbock actually, but you've also got the Maibocks, which are quite strong, and those are slightly more kind of hoppy and brighter versions of the Bock beer, rather than being more kind of malty and bready and things like that. And yeah, that's a kind of interesting point on this one, because this one is actually quite a bright looking Doppelbock. So we'll talk about whether this one is more of a Maibock or a regular Doppelbock actually. But yeah, you can get a range of different colours from Doppelbocks actually. Probably the most well known examples of the Doppelbock would be the Celebrator from Eyinger, you've got the Salvator from Paulaner, you have the Assambock from Weltenberg, the I want to say it's the Corbinian is the name of the Weihenstephaner one. Those are probably the most well-known examples that you're going to have. The Augustiner Maximator is a very good one as well actually. So yeah, there's lots of really good German-style Doppelbocks out there that you can try. But yeah, as you can see with this one, as I mentioned earlier, this one poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy kind of fawn coloured head. That's faded away to just be a little wispy layer on top. There's a little bit of a kind of foamy ring around the edge, but in terms of colour, if we shine the light through this one, this is a nice very kind of reddish coppery mahogany colour. You can see there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, and I have to say when we swirl it about, this one certainly looks like a very nice kind of oily beer. When the light comes through it, there is a degree of haze to this one. And it's kind of a natural haze though, obviously. It's nowhere near as hazy as some of these New England IPAs and stuff that you're getting these days. But yeah, I think in terms of colour, this one's a lovely bright kind of coppery mahogany type colour, and I think it comes across really quite nicely. So yeah, in terms of the colour of this one, a little bit brighter than some of the other ones that I've come across, but that's not a bad thing. I think I've got hair in my mouth. Ah. There we go. Something weird thing to happen. I must have just inhaled that actually. Yeah, really nice looking beer this one. But as I say, slightly brighter than some of the other Doppelbocks that I've come across before. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one. Then really curious to see what this beer has in store. Ooh, yeah, that comes across very very nicely actually. But it does strike me from the aroma as being a little bit more. It's almost got a little touch of a Maibock character to it, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I like how the aroma on this one goes together. So straight away with this beer, you're going to notice the big kind of breadiness that it has. That's a really interesting point to make about this one. So I've always found German beers to be, you know, quite bready in a lot of ways, and I was a huge fan of the German bakeries when I lived over there in Heidelberg, and that was where I really got into beer. Of course, my whole love of beer began with the Bamberg Rauch beers, and then when I went to live in Germany, that was when I discovered Helles and Dunkel and Weizen and all of these other series, and then Doppelbock, of course. Came quite soon after that as well, although I didn't know about them before I went. I just got more into them really. But yeah, straight away with this beer you've got that lovely kind of big brown sugary thing that you expect of the Doppelbock. So yeah, a lot of sweet kind of oily brown sugars out of this one. There's a wee touch of a kind of treacly note to this one, but I would say it is more of a kind of big oily caramel that you're getting out of this beer. It's got a nice, it's quite an oily brown sugar, like I say, smooth caramel in there. It's got a little bit of that almost kind of German rye bread quality. That's the thing that really forms the backbone of this beer, is that brown German rye bready quality. That is the big kind of backbone of this beer. But yeah, on top of that you get some nice oily kind of brown sugary characters, as I say, a little bit of a caramelly note. I'm not sure if I would go quite as far as treacle and molasses. There's a wee touch of a biscuity note to this one. As you smell it a bit more, you're going to get some kind of woody and slightly nutty characters out of it as well. But yeah, it does come across as a little bit, it does come across as very typical of the German style Doppelbock, but there are a few elements in there, like some of the brown sugary notes, some of the brighter brown sugars for me, some of the more biscuity notes come across as a little bit Maibock like, but you do get a range of different malt bases from these beers. Some of them are a bit more dark and treacle and molasses like, but some of them can be quite bright. So in terms of aroma, this one does have a little bit of a Maibock character for me, which is the brighter Doppelbock, but it also has what you'd expect from some of the other more malty Doppelbocks, like I said. So yeah, the aroma of this one for me comes across very nicely, and it's got a little bit of quirkiness to it. Yeah, a few little nutty and woody undertones coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, I'm curious to see exactly how this interpretation is. But in terms of the hoppy side of things then, it's got a little bit of that earthiness that you expect of the German noble hops. I would guess that they've used a little bit of Northern Brewer in here, along with a little bit of Hallertau or Tettnanger. Northern Brewer, of course, is a very popular hop for the Doppelbocks. It gives you these juicy red fruity notes. But yeah, it's got a nice little bit of that kind of smooth noble earthiness. There's a wee touch of herbal quality in there, some nice brighter floral aromaticity, a little touch of a kind of grassy note out of this one. But yeah, I really like how the hoppy side of this beer kind of plays into it. But on the fruity side of things, you've got some really nice things going on as well. So for me, there's a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry kind of note coming out of the beer. You've got some juicy figs in there. There's maybe a wee touch of a kind of plummy, raisiny note to it as well. But all of the fruits for me come across as quite wet and quite juicy, if that makes sense. And one of the things you always get from Sälens Fjällbryggeri is a nice, very clean mouthfeel, and you can kind of smell that cleanliness in the beer a little bit as well. It's the mountain water coming out. But yeah, like I say, a little bit of a plummy, raisiny note from me. Also a good bit of a juicy fig. But then you've got those kind of blackcurranty and blackberry notes coming out of the beer, almost right on the front of the nose. So yeah, as I say, I would describe this beer as a very authentic smelling Doppelbock, but there are just a few elements of Maibock in there for me as well, and it's kind of in the way that the brown sugars come out. That's the basis I have for saying that it's got a little bit of a Maibock character as well. And of course the colour is another giveaway as well. The thing that affects the colour of your beer is the types of malt that you use, but also the length of the boil that you put on it. The longer you boil it, the more the sugars caramelise, and you start to get a bit of a darker colour to it as well. So yeah, interesting aroma to this one. Take a little bit of time to ponder that over, but we're going to have a taste of this one now. So this one is the Fjällbock, coming in at 7% ABV, some kind of Doppelbock from Sälens Fjällbryggeri in the southwest corner of Dalarna. Kind of in the middle of Sweden, I guess you could say. So let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål. Oh yeah, that is nice. I would say this is a nice example of the style. And again, this is what I've said about Sälens Fjällbryggeri before. When they try these traditional styles of beer, they tend to get them pretty spot on, and they're really nice and clean interpretations. Another brewery that I would recommend in this regard would be Eskilstuna Ölkultur. These guys are good at the you know, the German style beers and the authentic, you know, Belgian, German, Czech type things as well. So yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, Sälens Fjällbryggeri and Eskilstuna Ölkoter, you definitely want to hit them up. But yeah, this one is pretty solid. What I was saying about there being an element of Maibock in this one, I think that really runs true with this beer, and we'll talk about that as we go through as we break down the flavour of this one. So straight away with this beer, then you can feel that nice kind of bready base just blanketing the middle of your palate. So straight away you get this nice kind of German rye bready quality with this one. You can feel that just kind of forming the backbone of the whole beer. If you go to the front corners of the palate, then just move diagonally back a little bit, you will pick out a few woody undertones. If you go to the centre of your palate and then just gradually edge forward, you'll feel that there's a few kind of nutty things in there as well. But yeah, the backbone of the beer is a distinctive German kind of rye bready quality, and you can feel that if you go to the back third of your tongue, that breadiness just thickens up a little bit. It gets a little bit more grainy at the very back, at the very kind of extreme, the far extremity of the back third of your tongue, and yeah, you do get a kind of smoothness out of it on the back third of your palate there as well. And as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, you can feel the thickness just dies away a little bit, and the middle third of your palate feels just a little bit thinner in terms of the bready qualities, but you've got some nice brown sugary notes just kind of sitting on top of that bready base, and this is where the beer kind of starts to become a little bit Maibock like. So yeah, it's got a lot of what you'd expect from a kind of regular Doppelbock, if you can call it that, but I think the brightness of the brown sugars in this one gives me more of an impression of it does have a little bit of that Maibock type quality to it. So this is one, I don't know if the intention when they brewed this beer was that it kind of straddles the line between Doppelbock and Maibock, but personally I think it really does that. I think it's got a little bit of both in the flavour profile. So yeah, as I said, on top of that bready layer in the middle of your palate, you've got a nice kind of oily brown sugary quality there. If you go to the middle of your palate, it's actually quite a nice bright caramel, but I think most of the brown sugars for me, I find them really quite biscuity and sort of like a McVitie's digestive. I really find that that's how the brown sugars come out on this one, and it's that biscuity note, it's the kind of graininess, if you like, the graininess of the brown sugars that really kind of makes me think more Maibock with this one, because with a straight up Doppelbock it would be a lot kind of more caramelised and a lot darker almost, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what really makes me say Maibock about this one. It's the kind of biscuity and slightly grainy nature of the brown sugars that you get in this beer, but it works really well with everything else that's going on, I have to say. So yeah, I think that's definitely fair. It feels as if it's not such a long boil Doppelbock in that sense, and as a result I think it really straddles the Maibock regular Doppelbock kind of line, if you like. So there's elements of both in there. The breadiness is more Doppelbocky, but the brown sugars for me are more Maibocky in this one. So that's an interesting take-home message from this one, I think. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, you've got that typical German kind of noble earthiness in the back corners of the palate, but as you move further forward along the side of the palate there, it gets a little bit more, it does have a wee bit of herbal quality, and as you reach the front corners of the palate there, it's got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity, and then round the front curve of the palate it's got that little bit of a lighter kind of grassy thing there. And the hops, in fairness, the floral notes for me actually come out a little bit more in this one compared to other Doppelbocks that I've had. I might be drinking this one a little bit fresh, in fairness. Maybe you have to let these Doppelbocks just age a little bit for the hops to die down, and then you can really focus more on the malty side of it. But that's another feature of the Maibock, is the slightly more hoppy presence in my experience. But yeah, on that front third of the palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters come out of the beer. And this one's got a few interesting things going on. So yeah, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit, there is a wee touch of a kind of plummy note to this one. It's got that juicy kind of plum quality there, but as you move further forward along the palate, you do start to get, you get a bit more of a kind of juicy figgy quality to this one, and you can feel that. There are one or two kind of peary elements coming out of this beer as well, which again is a little bit more Maibocky, a little bit of a peary apricot thing, but there's some juicy fig in there, and as you reach the kind of front part of that front third of your tongue, there's a little bit of a more oily kind of, there is a wee bit more of a kind of oily, there is a bit of a kind of blackcurranty kind of flavour there, and that lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, there's a mixture of a kind of figgy, apricotty, peary type thing on the kind of front third of your palate for me. And as I say, this is where the Maibock would normally have the more kind of peary, slightly gooseberry type esters that you get out of this one, whereas the regular Doppelbock would be a little bit more kind of figgy, raisiny, and then kind of blackcurranty and blackberry-ish. And you can feel a whole kind of concoction of fruits coming out of this one in that sense, but it does have a bit kind of oily, fruity character, and you would expect that from either of the two sort of Doppelbock variants, if you like. So yeah, this is an interesting one. This is definitely another beer that's making me think, and you know, after 2,400 beers, that is really what you want. So yeah, fruitiness is a mixture of both Doppelbock and Maibock in my mind. Malty base is a bit more, it is again a mix. You've got the breadiness of the Doppelbock and the woodiness and things like that, but you've got the more kind of brown sugary qualities that you'd expect of a Maibock. The hoppiness, the sort of green side of the hops for me, again, a little bit of a mix. You've got a wee bit of the kind of smooth earthiness you'd expect of a regular Doppelbock, but you've got a wee bit of the more kind of herbal and floral and grassy notes you'd expect of the Maibock as well. So it's really a kind of mix of things that's going on with this beer. But you know, generally speaking, I like this one. I think this is an interesting one. So if you want a beer that's a little bit quirky, this is one that's kind of right up your street. I guess you could maybe argue this is one of the kind of less authentic ones that we've had from Sälens Fjällbryggeri so far, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a bit of experimentation, and as I say, it's made me think a little bit, which I like. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say this one is fairly mid-bodied. It's kind of right in the middle of the spectrum. The carbonation is very, very smooth in this one, which is what you expect. It's got a nice kind of oily mouthfeel, but at the same time it's got a nice kind of wet cleanliness to it. That's what you expect because of the location of this brewery, and you do expect a bit of oiliness because of the style that this beer is, and I think it finds a really good balance there. This beer is quite a clean feeling Doppelbock in my mind. So yeah, on the malty side of things then, like I say, it's got a good bit of smoothness, so there is a bit of graininess comes out of this one a little bit later. You do get some nice kind of sweeter elements to it also, but yeah, malt base finds a good balance between smoothness, graininess, and a little touch of sweetness. It's got a bit of everything in there. The hoppy side of things, the beer, for the most part, it is quite smooth. There is a little bit of bitterness to this one. I would say it's probably about 20 IBUs, if that. I think, yeah, 20-ish IBUs seems like a good estimate there. You get a bit of bitterness from the earthiness, and the floral notes also give you a wee touch of that as well. The fruitiness for me is mainly oily. There is a wee bit, and almost a wee tiny touch of sharpness from the kind of blackberry, blackcurranty notes that come out on the very front edge of the tongue, but a nice oily character to the fruits as well. But overall, this is a really, really quite interesting beer. As I've kind of said quite a few times throughout this review, it straddles the line between Maibock and regular Doppelbock for me. It's got elements of both, but I think generally speaking it's turned out to be another really quite nice beer. Not as authentic as the other ones that I've had from them, I would say. A little bit more kind of quirky, but it's nice. It does work out in this one, and it goes together. Everything fits together in this one really well, and I think they've done a good job with it. So thumbs up to Sälens Fjällbryggeri for this one once again. So yeah, I would recommend this beer. Have a go at it for yourself and see what you think. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. Another very interesting beer from these guys, and I look forward to seeing what I can get from them next. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Sälens Fjällbryggeri as well. If you do have some other Doppelbock or Maibock recommendations, do put those in the comments section below. But make sure you check out some of these guys' beers. You know, try a style that you enjoy from these guys, and you are Guaranteed a good beer in my experience. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Sälens Fjällbryggeri. Do give me some other brewery recommendations in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys very soon. This is the Sälens Fjällbock coming in at 7% ABV, a mix of my Bock and Doppelbock from Sälens Fjällbryggeri in Sälen in the southwest corner of Dalarna County. Here in kind of right in the middle of Sweden, to be honest with you. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you guys very soon. Slange skål. Make sure you check out the beer, check out the brewery, and check out my social media as well. Slange skål. Cheers.